There are people everywhere that have money that do not know what to do with it in order to make more of it. Everybody wants to put money in something that's going to have cost them very little time or effort, but they don't want to go out and do the hard work. And so when it comes to real estate, and with all things really, you've got three things: the deal, you've got the time, or you've got the money. And so if you can find the deal and you have the time, all you need to find is someone that doesn't have those other two things, and you instantly can buy that property and move the ball forward.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast, where we explore the world of entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to start, grow, and scale a successful business. We're on a mission to share our experiences, failures, insights, and advice with others. Whether you're just starting out in your entrepreneurial journey or you're looking to take your business to the next level, tune in and join the conversation about what it takes to succeed in the world of business.
We going full throttle.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you with me today. I'm really excited because I have a friend of mine. We're in a mastermind together, and I am really inspired by his story and his experience. Before we dive into the content, as always, what's most important to me is that if there's someone that hears Loren's story and is inspired, wants to learn more, or is passionate about it, or you think that there's someone else that also should hear this, please share it with them. That's all I ask, because we do this, we give our time to this, we have these conversations to benefit people. We want people to hear this, we want people to know about this, and we want the right people to get the right level of education that hits them where they're at. So if this benefits you, please share this with one person. I appreciate the likes, I appreciate the subscriptions, the ratings, all the things that make the podcast get bigger. But what's most important is the information, and that the information falls in the right ears. So, Loren, thank you for being with me. Thanks for giving me your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And you laughed at my. I don't know if you did. You judge my Parks?
No
and Rec
judgment, no judgment, just pure appreciation. So
okay. Nice. Yeah. When my wife and we had our first kid, we just binged all of Parks and Rec, and then I binge it every year ever since then. So it's been my favorite. Let's dive in though. So you tell me a little bit about your background. What got you into real estate investment? What were you doing before real estate investment? I think more importantly.
Yeah, so I have no real estate background whatsoever. I actually have a master's in entomology, which is the study of insects, and was working as a digital project manager, so overseeing Salesforce.com implementation across North America for the W-2 I have. And when 2020 hit, I just realized that like the massive changes that had happened across the country, and it happened to our family, going from working to the office 5 days a week to working from home 5 days a week, like I no longer felt as secure in my W-2 income as what I had. And I wanted a different lifestyle for my family. I have 4 small children, 8 and under, and I was just working constantly. I was going to the office 5 days a week. I never saw them. And I needed to do something different to put us in a different financial state so that we could spend more time traveling and hiking. And we love being outside. And 4 weeks a year of vacation wasn't going to do it long term. And I knew things were just going to get more expensive, and the time that I spent with them was going to be more critical. And so I needed to do something else. So we started an Amazon business in 2020, did FBA for about 9 months, made some money there. Actually, the startup money that, like $7,000 that I used to start my first, get my first real estate property. But the time we were giving up, because we had a baby at the time, we had like a 5-month-old. We were giving up with our family, was just, we didn't get the margins that we were looking for on it. And so we put that, shut that down. And then I basically got in the mindset, I'm going to buy real estate. I don't have 20 or 30,000 in my account to buy real estate at this point in time. So it became a someday, in a year, in 2 years, we'll do this. When, it's always the when this happens, right? And that just keeps getting kicked down the road more and more. And then in 2021, I was at a bonfire and I was talking to a guy that has real estate. And he says, if you find the right deal, we'll find the money. And like for some reason, that mentality just like snapped in my head. It was pivotal because I went and started creating business plans. I started cold calling. I was looking at mobile home parks at the time. I had $7,000 to my name, or not to my name, but in my account that I could do stuff with for investing. And the very first thing I did was invest in a course to figure out how I could creatively finance properties to purchase them. And so with that, I was able to lock up my first deal, which was a seller financing deal. So the owner carried the note, and I paid him until I refinanced it. And then found a partner that had a lot of ties to private money in April of the following year. And since then, we've bought 53 properties. We own 77 doors, and we have a 10-unit apartment building we're closing on next week.
Awesome. Okay. I want to stop. I want to go through that whole thing slowly because I love it. That was awesome. First off, my weird question, which is that, okay, you said entomology. You went to, you got a master's in that?
Yep.
Can you confirm for me? This is just pure perception, and it's naivety, and it can be heard as judgment. But like, are there normal people that take that degree? Like, are there normal measured people that study entomology?
It's an eclectic group that chooses to study that major. The vast majority of my co-students or colleagues, whatever, were going into academia, right? To be professors, to be researchers. I was working in agriculture at the time. And so I went into it. They were in there. How do we preserve the insects? How do we, study them, whatever. I went in, and my master's was, how do I kill as many of these things with different methods as possible in order to get the best crop possible? No one has ever said I'm specifically normal, so that helps. It's definitely.
You probably have you probably have a decent perception of like whether someone is like a balanced individual that like just loves insects. Like that's. Yeah. I was thinking that's like all those kids that like had ant farms, right? And I'm trying to think if like there's any cool kids that had ant farms, and I'm like, I don't. Not many.
I think anybody that chooses to have an ant farm has some sort of God complex that they're trying to fulfill.
All right. I just want to get that out of the way because I was like, okay, that's such an interesting degree. Do your kids like bugs?
Yeah, they do actually. So they get a heavy dose of it because I know so much, right? And we live in North Carolina, so there's plenty of fire ant hills to poke, or we get cicadas around, and we'll find their exoskeletons molted off and things like that. But they don't mind them. They don't particularly like ticks, fleas, or cockroaches. But who likes those?
Okay.
So
true. That's a good point. Okay. Yeah, I just want to get that out of the way. That was just I heard that. I was like, I can't let this slide. I can't let this pass. I gotta address it. You seem pretty normal. You seem like a normal guy. So I think like I'm glad you made it out. Yeah. Okay. So I also wanted to ask because I have friends. I work with people that do Amazon FBA. I did Amazon FBA. What was your experience like with that? It checks out because most people that start off in like let me seek a side hustle. Let me try. Like, I want to get back my time. I hate this corporate lifestyle. I want to be spending time with my family, and also like I just want to own my own business. That's one of the main things in the past few years that people have tried. It's like Etsy or some level of Amazon arbitrage. Yeah. Some people tried drop shipping, but yeah, what got you into that? What exposed you to that?
It's actually my wife found people online that were doing it, and it was the retail arbitrage model, right?
Gotcha.
And so on Excel sheets, which I'm super process oriented, it made great sense and made a ton of money on paper. And then you start getting into it, and there's just a lot of holes that you find. And as you started getting into it, like, okay, if Amazon changes their policies, this is the massive impact to my business. Or we spend all this time sourcing a SKU that makes us money, and then everybody else finds it and the margins all get cut on it. And so there's just this constant hunting exercise where then you were relying your whole future, if you went full time into that, on what decisions Amazon was going to make that you had absolutely no control over. And so from a business standpoint, it didn't make sense to me to keep going forward with that. But what it did do is it shifted my mindset from like worker to entrepreneur, because when you make that shift, at least for me, it was like everything looked like an opportunity. You drive down the road and like, I wonder how much a billboard makes on every month. I wonder how much somebody that owns the land underneath a cell tower. I wonder, what's a painting company make? Everything looks like an opportunity. And it's that mental shift that once you make, it's really hard to come back from and go back to just sitting in a cube and doing what you're told.
I love that, man. That sounds very similar to me. I actually how much did you guys do in 9 months? How much revenue?
$270,000 or something.
That's
like
awesome.
That.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm guessing you did it what, like 15%, maybe? Like, did you?
Yeah,
did you
we
grow-
were just under 20. I think like 18 to 19%. So
That's awesome. But it's a hustle, man. It's hustle. And then, did you do like primarily FBM, or did you ship it all by yourself as well?
we did primarily FBA with just a small number of SKUs that we shipped ourselves, primarily around Christmas time. So it was like there was something called a sensicle, which is like these little vials of sticks that have smells. And I shipped so many of those things in bubble mailers, so many of those things. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, and to encourage anybody, like I've done it, I think we've done 325 in 12 months. It's possible. Like you can totally do it. People make money doing it. I work with people that make 7 figures, like 6 figures easily, but they have 7-figure businesses that give them 6 figures per year. And they've outsourced a lot of it. Like it is possible, but to confirm what you're saying, I'm not doing Amazon until like after this Christmas. I'm just going to ride out this Christmas. My team's doing it, and I'm just letting them do their thing. And I don't want to do anything after that because there's so many better opportunity vehicles. Once you realize that you want to be a business owner and not just a hustler.
yeah.
So that's the one thing. It's really cool. It's really interesting you said that. And probably the people that I probably am friends with, some of the people that taught you, like you're talking about like Reezy Resales.
I remember
like,
that name.
Chris Grant.
Grant was one. I'm trying to remember the name. Hustle Buddies was, I think, the group that we initially got into. I can't remember his name right now.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's just small world. Whenever someone says that, I'm like, oh, I see it. It's cool. It's a hustler. And then you said you had $7,000 that you then took and you were like, I want to get into real estate. Let's talk about that conversation that you had with that investor friend. Mm-hmm. So was it just kind of like a passing conversation where you're like, man, I really want to do this, but I don't have any cash? Was it as simple as that?
So I had never wanted to be in real estate. My dad had one rental growing up, and he just basically took anybody with a pulse. And so it was just a constant nightmare of tenant issues. And my wife's family had some rentals, and she's kind of always said, oh, we have a few rentals here and there maybe. And I was like, I don't really want to deal with toilets and tenants. But when my buddy Ryan got a rental a couple of years ago, he was telling me, oh, I bought it for this and I'm making $400 a month. And at that point I still had this grand visions of you buy 100 units at $400 a month, that you're going to make all this money, not figuring out all the CapEx and everything else. And so he was the one that I was talking to originally and got me inspired to do it. And so as we were talking through it, he had several rentals, like 2 or 3 rentals, and he was doing flips. And I had just got myself into a scarcity mindset of I need to have 20% down in order to afford to buy a property. And then you save up your money, you get another 20%, and you do another one. It becomes this really slow progression forward. And what I didn't realize at the time, and what I see very, very clearly now, is that there is no lack of capital in this world. There are people everywhere that have money that do not know what to do with it in order to make more of it. Everybody wants to put money in something that's going to cost them very little time or effort, but they don't want to go out and do the hard work. And so when it comes to real estate, and with all things really, you've got 3 things. You've got the deal, you've got the time, or you've got the money. And so if you can find the deal and you have the time, all you need to find is someone that doesn't have those other 2 things, and you instantly can buy that property and move the ball forward. And as you kind of move up the investor ladder, then the goal is to have someone else take the time and have someone else take you maybe find the deals, or even you outsource that. But the ultimate goal is to do less things and use more of your money to make more money. But when you're starting out, you've got to bring the time and you've got to bring the deal forward.
Have you ever seen the show Shark Tank? I'm sure you have.
Mm-hmm.
I think about it a lot this way, where it's like you have these 100 millionaires. I think all of them are at least 9 figures plus in terms of net worth, and you have someone come up to them and saying, "I want $50,000 for 25% of my company," right? And the equivalent, like if someone were to walk up to an average stranger, it's like, there's this, like, invest $50 with me and I can make you, hundreds, right? And I think to your point, there's a huge disconnect between that person with the dream and asking for the investment and the person that has the money that just doesn't know what to do with it. And part of the reason they do that show, like I was listening to an interview from Mark Cuban, and he was like, almost every single deal falls flat. Almost every single one. Like he says, he was like, I might have broken even overall, but majority of the businesses that I invest in that appear on Shark Tank, they don't follow through and they don't actually make money and they're not actually profitable. And what's funny about that is like the consistent willingness to be like, yeah, I'll still invest, is because that's how much abundance they have, that they say, okay, I am investing in this, most of the time, entrepreneur, and I believe maybe less in the product and more so in the person of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to build. Whereas the person sitting there being like, man, I only need $50,000 to make this dream a reality, or at least to really have a shot. I love that you identified that within the real estate space, because I think that's super true, that there's people that don't want to do the work, that are ready to be in that investor level, that are bored. And they're saying, man, I would really like to find someone I can trust that can do something that I think is interesting. Mm-hmm. It's not even like I need a surefire thing. I need to double up 100%. It's like, no, I'd be fine if I get an 8% increase in a different way. That's exciting for me.
Yeah.
So I can have an impact.
How can I diversify my portfolio, which mitigates my risk, and further mitigating my risk by people that are actually doing it, have done it and have a track record, so that I can grow my personal wealth while they grow their wealth as well, right? And the nice thing about real estate versus some of those businesses on Shark Tank is my investments are all backed by hard assets, right?
Yeah.
And so as long as you're buying correctly and you know what you're doing as an operations standpoint, it's not impossible to lose money, but it's much less risky than, say, I'm going to give you $50,000 for the newest, hottest toy that's going to hit Christmas, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So. And there's the math of that is like so different. And like, to affirm your point even more, 90% of millionaires are millionaires because of real estate. Mm-hmm. That's the math. And then 100% of billionaires are billionaires because of private equity. And that affirms both the things that you're talking about, which is that like some people really want to invest, and real estate is the most common way that happens. So I love that you found yourself in that like predicament. Tell me about that conversation and how that shifted you now that you're an entrepreneur. How they said, okay, if you can go find deals, I'll back you. We'll find the money somewhere. How did that impact you?
Took my vision of what's possible from this narrow view of this one opportunity to just exploded it to the whole, everything's possible if you structure it the right way. Right. And so the same way FBA took me from I'm a worker to now I'm an entrepreneur, it changed how I saw money. I didn't see money as this thing that people held on to and then they gave $1 to get $2 back. And it was this linear increase for the rest of time, right? It became this, how can I find value, put that out to the marketplace, and people will reward me for finding those values and for my hard work by giving their dollars in for exponential growth over time.
And let's connect it to FBA, because FBA is exactly like you're saying. Sourcing is hard, especially retail. It means you're going out to stores, and this is education for, like, I know what you're talking about for someone that doesn't know FBA. I've had a couple FBA people on here. It's going out to stores, going out to locations, scanning products, seeing that if you could buy that product there from that clearance rack or maybe from that sale, and you could sell it on Amazon, how much of a profit would you have, if you would have a profit at all? And so it was time intensive. It takes your energy. You have to go out and drive to stores. It's even capital intensive because you have to buy the products and you don't know if you're going to be able to sell them. You don't know if, hopefully you're ungated, which means you're allowed to sell the product. And then, there's just so many complications with it. And even if you do something called online arbitrage, which is what I did, and it's what my team currently does, you're finding the same products. It's online. The margins are even smaller, and it's the same capital intensive issues and it's the same amount of risk. But you're learning the skill set and you establish the skill set of going and finding deals. Effectively, that's what you did. You did it at a retail level at stores. So you had the back end hustle mentality and mindset of, I can go find the deal. I can find the gold. I can find the needle in the haystack that's going to get me the right amount of profit. So you went back home, you talked to your wife. What did you do? Like, did you buy a course first before you started looking? Or did you just start looking?
So the first thing I do whenever I'm trying to learn something new is I go through what I think of as like a learning funnel, right? So whenever you start something new, you have no idea what you don't know. And so I threw myself into watching every YouTube video I could come up with and then writing down every term that I didn't understand and looking those things up, because the fastest way to understand a niche is to understand the nomenclature and terms that people use when talking about that. Because until you understand that, it's just like a foreign language. Like, oh, do you know what the LTV is or what the ARV is? And, all these terms that investors, I say that and they know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're not in real estate, you have no idea what an LTV is or ARV or, some of these other things. And so you have to understand that first. Then from there, I start listening to podcasts. I start reading forums until I get to a certain level. Then I read books and then I start doing courses, because at some point, all the information that's free and easy, it becomes very time consuming to pick through it to figure out the new ideas and understand the new concepts you haven't figured out yet. So the fastest way to escalate things from there is to get a course or to get a mentor that you can ask specific questions or is going to go into much more detail on specific subjects.
I was just going to ask, who did you first find in the real estate space that educated you for free? And then what course did you buy?
Bigger Pockets, number one. And then Coach Carson on YouTube. He has some of the best how to run numbers videos, like on a whiteboard, super back of napkin stuff. And I bought Coach Carson's course on creative financing because I already trusted him. I knew his stuff was approachable. I would be able to deal with it. And I had $7,000 and it was a $700 course. And I kicked around even spending that $700 for so long. I was so nervous that I was going to, it was going to be a waste of money and I wasn't going to get my value out of it and stuff. Yeah. And I've turned that $700 course into $5 million worth portfolio.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Bigger Pockets, talk to me about them. Because everyone that gets started in the real estate space, usually you've been listening to the podcast. Like everyone I talk to, it's like I started listening to it. I would listen to it on my way home from work, on my way to work, and I that's where I learned about the concept of house hacking. That's how I learned about all these maybe even subject to or some of these other methods of finding your first property. Was there a difference when Brandon Turner was a part of it versus when he left?
It's hard for me to judge that. When Brandon Turner was part of it, I was still very new. And so Bigger Pockets is the juggernaut in that space, right? And what the value to Bigger Pockets has is they provide their listeners what's possible, right? The mindset you need to have, but also just that it's possible to have nothing and in 3 years have an $800,000 a month wholesaling business, right? Or that there's subject twos, or that there's tax credits, or whatever the thing is. They expose people to different things that you might not necessarily pick up at a local meetup or on a forum or something else. And once you have that nugget that something's possible, then all you have to do is figure out if someone else can do it, then I sure as hell can do it. So how do I do it? Right. And so I can't say I've listened to the David Green, Rob Abasola podcast a few times, but by the time Brandon switched out, I'd kind of moved past that level of where I was looking and had moved into business stuff. So I'd moved last year. 2022 was about how to buy properties, how to build a real estate portfolio. 2023 was about how to build a business. And so this year is all about building, reading business books, listening to business podcasts, putting systems and processes in place, and trying to figure out how I turn my real estate hobby or portfolio into a real estate business.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so talk to me. You said something that I love, which is that you had $7,000 to spend, and that wasn't so. Some people they might not even feel like they have they might have $7,000 in their savings account, right? And they're like, man, this is all I got. I got a family, got kids. I don't, this is how much risk I got. I already feel like my back's against the wall. And you had that at least in a, let me play with it, let me see what I can do from an investment perspective account. Already smarter, already ahead of people. And then you still admit that $700, you were like, should I buy this? Yeah. Talk to me about that, because you probably had confidence that it was going to work out, but talk to me about the decision-making process of like, I don't know if I want to invest in this course. It's going to actually push me to the next level.
I think, again, it goes back to this scarcity mindset. And when you're new, you really struggle with being able to bet on yourself. And so what you're doing when you buy a course or pay for someone to mentor you is you're not specifically paying for that course or that mentorship, but you're paying for the knowledge that you can then apply to your business, right? And so when you're first starting out, you've never proven to yourself that I can take this information that they're going to give me and I'm going to actually do something with it that's going to create value. And so the first time you do it, I'm like, this is 10% of everything I have to spend. If I lose this money, right? I spend the money and I don't use this material, then now I'm down to $6,300. I'm further away from where I wanted to go. And so it is terrifying in a sense. In the grand scheme of things, I look back, I'm like, that was such a silly thing that you're worried about $700. But I think it speaks more to the mentality of somebody that's new, that's never done it. Every time you do something new, it's going to be terrifying. Mm-hmm. I remember driving specifically to the lawyer's office to sign the papers for my very first property and thinking about turning around and just going home. Like, we'd already gone through all the paperwork. Already had the check in my pocket for the down payment, everything. I'd got the HELOC on my house, like everything. And I'm halfway there. I'm like, I could just come turn around and go home. Like, I don't have to go sign these papers. I was terrified, right? But I knew it was the right decision. Mm. And so it's not what I wanted to do because I was terrified, but I did not let fear get in my way of going to do it, right? And now that property, after renovations and refi, is making me $896 a month in cash flow. So in long term, it's going to appreciate like crazy. It was a great purchase. It was a great investment. But you get yourself all worked up and terrified of things that you've never done. And the only reason you're scared of them is because you've never done them, right? And this happens today. Even when I move into new stuff, even though I've shown myself that I can do these things, we start heading into a new arena or a new big project. We're buying a 10-unit apartment building right now. Like, there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of fears, and you have to kind of sit down and what are these fears are actually logical fears and which ones are just emotional fears, and label them as such, and then either put a plan in place for the ones that you can control, or figure out how you mitigate them, or accept them, or pass. Those are your three options.
I mean, Alex Hormozy calls it the S&Me 500. I love it, where it's like you invest in yourself, right? Like that's ultimately the only thing that's going to have an exponential return, because when you become the asset, that I think I saw even Ryan Pineda posted something today, and he probably recorded it a long time ago. And by the time this podcast comes out, it'll come out a long time ago. I don't even think it went viral. But he just said, you can take away all my assets, all my business, everything. You can take away everything that I have, and I would still be okay. Because he now knows what to do. Once you've built, once you've hustled, once you've gotten to another place, you have such an asset from your knowledge that you're never starting back at zero. You're starting back with such an advantage of every person that's trying to learn and every person that's trying to grow. So that's why I work in the education space. That's why I work in the info product space. That's why I work with people that sell info products, because I believe that investment on the right things is just it's just so exponentially valuable. And I've seen so many lives impacted because of things we've created.
So true.
You know, even just like the content I'm making for people that helps, like there's some coaches where I'm helping where it's like their primary goal is just to give people value for free. But because of those people, because of what they're making, because of their products that they're selling, people have grown so exponentially, and you can't actually factor in the people that they're going to impact, right? And so I think I want to encourage anybody, like, you're hearing like your story is rare because you don't normally have someone that does it that fast. You don't normally have someone that commits that quickly, having the reservations that you've had, and then going from 0 to, what did you say, 55 properties?
53, yeah. In 18 months, 19 months, yeah.
That is unbelievable. Okay, so there's someone's going to say that's a scam. There's someone's going to say it's dumb. I know it's not because you're not, your Instagram profile doesn't have as many followers right now, so you have nothing to scam.
I'm
There's
not
nothing
selling
fake about
anything
it.
either.
It's real. So, yeah, that's what's crazy. So, like, tell me, like, there's the element of that you've learned, and then there's something that separates you. Like, would you say that your skill set is finding deals, and then you just have the right strategic partnerships where it's worked out? Like, what's been the secret sauce that has led to that amount of growth in 18 months? Because I know people that have been doing it for years, Bigger Pockets fans for years, and they're like, we just got our 10th property.
Yeah, and so a caveat to that before you answer that question is going back to what you said about Ryan Pineda. I think that despite how fast I've grown in 18, 19 months, if you took everything away and I had to start from 0, I would do the same thing, but faster. Because now I've made all the mistakes and I've learned so much that I would be able to scale even quicker. And the quality in 10 months would be even better than what I have today. Right. So what I am exceptionally good at, and what my business partner is also exceptionally good at, is I'm extremely good at processes and systems. I'm also an action taker. So if you give me something and say, this is the right thing to do, and I believe that this is the right thing to do, or if I figure out what the right thing to do is, like, it's going to be a matter of weeks, if not less than 2 months, before I have implemented it and move the ball forward. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time kicking around the idea and asking everybody and their brother that has no idea what they're talking about if they think it's a good idea, and they're unwilling to take the action to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't, and my wife thinks I have an all or nothing mentality. That's what she says. But I think that it's that drive to take action. I have this unrelenting sense of urgency, and I always have for everything I've ever done. And I don't know where that comes from, but I have this unrelenting sense of urgency that I have to move things forward as fast as I possibly can. Otherwise it will get taken from me. And maybe that has to do with in the past, I've shifted what I've been interested in one way or the other quickly. Like, I used to brew a lot of beer, and I was in grad school, and I would do this, and like my hobbies changed every 6 months to 18 months. And so it's like, I got to get as much of it done as possible quickly. But I think it has more to do with I learn so quickly and I take action so quickly that after a certain period of time, I start getting bored. Right. And so then I change tacks again. So I'm extremely action oriented. I'm extremely process oriented. So when I started out, one of the things you need to do is figure out how to run numbers. And so I started out just running numbers on my calculator on a piece of paper. Quickly figured out I don't want to do this repeatedly all the time. So I built basically a form in Excel that you just type in like 6 numbers and it pumps out the numbers for you on whether it's a good deal or not. And now I have my admin. She just types the numbers in for me. And then I have it conditionally formatted so that if it's a good deal, it's green, and if it's a mediocre deal, it's yellow, and if it's a bad deal, it's red. And then she sends me the yellow and green ones. And so that cuts down on my workload and speeds things up. And then once you start getting rolling, and I think one of the amazing things about real estate and anything really is once you start getting a track record of success, like, people want to be part of that. And so my business partner and I are exceptionally good at raising money. Like, we've raised $6.2 million in 18 months, in our first 18 months of business, to buy all these properties. We purchased all these properties with none of our own money. And our investors are making a really good return on their investment. And it's because we, focus on the needs of the group, not any short-term gains for ourselves, right? And that's part of our just general mentality of rising tide lifts all ships. And we are constantly looking for really solid deals. We're hustling all the time. I'm trying to take a step back so I can be with my family a little bit more. And by step back, I mean, work like 14-hour days and not 18-hour days. Well,
yeah. Okay. So wait, let me cut you off. So because you're highlighting something that is the truth, which is that you were working corporate and you were like, I don't like the fact that I'm away from my kids and away from my family. I don't like the fact that I'm spending 5 days a week here. I've got 4 kids and I want to spend more time with them. And you just confessed to me right there. I caught you. I got you. You trapped yourself. You just said, okay, you've traded the 40-hour work week for the 60 plus 80-hour work week.
100%.
and then the financial risk and burden and headaches. So talk to me about that and that sacrifice, because I don't think people appreciate that, because a lot of people they preach like, entrepreneurship gives you all the freedom in the world. And that's just, at least in my short experience, I have a shorter experience than you, not the truth. Like I have access to freedom. I can choose freedom, but there's the thing in the back of my mind where it's like, if I choose this freedom, it's limiting my potential for growth in the next 2 months. So it's hard for me to spend time with my kids in the next room and not be like, oh, I gotta go answer that email because I want to push forward. Talk to me about it.
You're 100% right? I think, to me, that idea of entrepreneurial freedom is people looking at things from a lens of 10 years from now, not in a year. Like, if you think you're going to have more freedom and more income and more peace of mind in the next 2 to 3 years, if you're starting to build a business, like, you've been sold a bill of goods. Like, there is a certain level of work and sacrifice that everyone has to put in. We go back to those 3 things: time, deal, and money. If you don't have the money, then you have to put the time in, right? And you have to have the deal. And so you have to be willing to sacrifice. Now, you don't have to work as hard as I do, right? So if we think it like, if I want to get from 0 to my goal, and let's just say that you takes 100 sacrifice points, whatever that means, to get from A to B, right? You can spread those 100 sacrifice points out. I'll do 1 point today and 1 point tomorrow and 1 point the next day, and eventually you'll get to your goal. Or you can front load the crap out of it, right? And put like 50 sacrifice points in the first 3 days, and then you're done after a week.
Yep.
And so it's, how long do you want that pain period to be? And if you're got momentum and you're making things move forward, I think too many people, they start getting comfortable and they start taking their foot off the gas too early. Because if you're not to the point where you have multiple people doing things for you, you can step out and things still happen, then you're not at a spot you can take a step back yet.
Yep.
Right? You haven't earned the right to step back yet and take your foot off the gas, because you maybe are seeing some success, but all you've done is given yourself a comfortable job or a high paying job. And I'm not willing to get there to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm willing to take the short-term sacrifice for the long-term reward.
I love that. And I think a lot of people are too. I think you have to assess for yourself, when is the appropriate time to sacrifice? Because some people, like, for example, if you have no kids, sacrifice the right? Like seriously, like, go crazy. Because if you have 0 kids and you're like, okay, all we're doing is sacrificing for each other, and we're sacrificing our own time, you have the future to do whatever you want to do. If you have kids, maybe it's like, I'm willing to sacrifice. Like, I'm assessing this right now. Like, I got 2 kids under 4, and I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm here for the first steps for my second born, right? And I'm like, I really want to embrace the next 3 months of his life. I really want to enjoy it. So it means that I'll probably set some boundaries, and it might mean I have to sacrifice some other things. It might mean that social life goes down. It might mean that spending goes way down, right? It might mean that there's other things that I'm not going to spend any time watching TV. I'm not going to spend any time doing the things that probably normal people do to veg. I'm going to commit time to kids, and I'm going to commit time to working. But the reality is that everyone has to make that sacrifice at some point if you're going to find something successful. And I do want to encourage people listening to this. Loren has self-confessed that he did not start in real estate as a real estate investor and as someone who's really passionate about real estate. But what he identified that he's really good at is systems. And you're an operator at heart, and you found a way to go to the highest opportunity vehicle for your skill set, which is operations and systems. Can you talk to me about, are you in particular also really good at raising capital, or is that more so your business partner?
So my business partner has a really strong ability. He's probably better than raising capital than me. He's also was in the industry for 5 or 6 years, so he came with a whole list of pre-existing relationships. But I have been able to bring in several investors since then. And honestly, I get a lot of people ask me, like, how do you find private money lenders? And I've had better luck making private money lenders than finding them. And what I mean by that is, because of my success with buying rental properties, I have a lot of people that come to me and be like, I have $200,000 in cash. I want to start buying rental properties. Can you teach me how? Right? And I start walking them through. Absolutely. I'm happy to give my time up. I start walking through. This is what you need to know. This is how you run your numbers. I'll give you all my documents, like everything. And like 9 times out of 10, they're like, that's a lot of work. I'm like, yeah, it took me years to get this stuff. I'm like, I'm happy to help you. And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, you can just give me your money and I'll give you like this much return and you don't have to do anything. And they're like, yeah, let's do that. And then, I'll learn from you how to do rentals. I'm like, great. I'm happy to keep helping. And when you're ready to buy rentals, I will happily help you do that too. But don't put your money in a money market at 4% when you can give it to me and I'll pay you, 20. So
Well, and what you don't, right? Like maybe you see this, maybe you don't see this, but like what you're doing is consulting sales. That's consulting sales. You're saying, hey, it's like consultative. Hey, if you want to do this, these are the resources it takes to do this. And you confront them with the amount of work, even if you have the accurate information. And then they're like, oh, actually, can I just go with the done for you model? And you're like, hell's yeah. Give me, like, here's my bank account. This just wire it over. We got you. We'll help you out. That is awesome. I love that. So in that same way, so like, what is your burden with content, right? Because you've identified there's ways for people to do these things. It's learnable. It's teachable. It takes a hustle. It takes grind. You've sacrificed a lot to get to where you are. I guess that moves me to like, where's your goal? You said you're buying 10 doors. You're in the process of it, right? So like, I'm sure I could ask you a bunch of questions about how you've scaled. I want to be sensitive of time, so we don't have to go all in the details of that. I'm sure you can cover that in content in other ways. But where do you want to go with it? Like do you have a dream door number? Like some people say, I really want 200 doors. I want 500 doors.
Yeah.
What's your goal?
The
with
door
it?
number doesn't matter too much to me. Is in a sentence, I want to have a very boring and profitable business. Meaning, like, we buy properties, money pumps out on a monthly basis. It's like snooze fest city, because things just run along like clockwork, right? So. And not just one business, but like I want to get to the point where I can put operators in place. I currently own 3 separate businesses, and our coach would probably have a fit if he heard that. But I own the rental business, which we also have flips under. I have a wholesaling business, which is to buy more properties at a cheaper price to basically offset some risk of how we get properties to the rental business. And then I also have a lending business for wholesalers to do transactional lending for double closes. So all in the real estate realm. But I'm focused on all of those and eventually want to get to the point where each one of them has its own operator so I can continue to do what I love to do, which is learn and grow new things, right? Because yes, I'm an operator, but I like to build the system. I like to tweak it. I like to get it just right. And then when it comes to QC and actually running it, I want to give it to somebody else and go do something, go build another one, right? I don't want to, I'm not detail oriented enough for that long term. And so I don't have a goal of number of doors. I have desire to have very profitable, very boring businesses that put off a lot of cash. And as be a good example for my kids, be a good husband. And then over the course of my life, I plan on giving $20+ million to different organizations that support keeping wild places wild. So national parks, the land, different groups that
love it.
Just
For the bugs.
Well, for the bugs. And
For the
I'm
bugs.
a big hiker, backpacker, right? And as a society, I don't believe we can be strong as a society if we don't protect our natural resources. And I don't mean oil and gas. I mean like wide open, unpolluted skies, trees, valleys, resource, animals, wildness. So.
Yep. I love that. And you're aligning with the mission. That's even better. The other thing that's impressive that I want people to recognize, and this is just to educate people on what I know, and you're more qualified to speak on this. The cool part about real estate is you're talking about boring businesses, you're talking about money in every single month. Not only are you benefiting from like, and this is to people that don't know why real estate is the best investment on the planet Earth, better than any stock portfolio, better than crypto, better than anything that happens. The reason it's the best is because not only do you get cash flowing assets, you have the cash flow. That's what Loren's talking about. There's money that is continually pumping every month. And yes, there's the risks aligned with it, but you also have a depreciating asset, right? And the depreciating asset means that as you have to fix stuff up and stuff breaks down, you spend money to fix that stuff, and that money is not taxable. That means it goes against all the things that you'd have to spend instead to, like, you get to essentially avoid tax, get cash, and then as you pay off the property, as it goes down in price, and even if you refinance, as it goes down, you eventually are able to have a cash flowing asset with no debt. So there's all these benefits that come with it, where not only are you getting the money in passive income, it's not really passive. It takes a lot to get there. There's systems to get there. It's a lot of hard work, right? But like Grant Cardone talks about passive income, but I hate when people say it, but like you can get to a point where if you have the systems in place, you're not trading your time for money, right? You have money coming in every single week. But the real reality is that you're avoiding taxes legally, and you actually have an asset over time that no one can take away from you. You can give to your kids, or you can just keep it yourself. It's just, I just love it. That's why people preach it. That's why I love educating people on it. That's why I want to get into it once I'm at that point. And I think I wish more people would just jump to that higher level of opportunity vehicle. Like instead of, like, there's benefits to Amazon, there's benefits to these smaller things, there's benefits to these side hustles. But the reality is, if you have the ability to go do this stuff, you should jump to just going and doing this stuff. Especially if you have the skill set and the systems, and you're an operator like Loren is. So tell me, what is your goal with content? You have an account, Invest with Loren. What's your goal? Why are you educating? Why are you doing this in the first place?
So I'm in a very unique position because I started in real estate less than 2 years ago. I still remember how terrifying it is to get going. I remember a lot of the pitfalls. And so I want to help as many people as possible that are trying to get into real estate, either through flipping, wholesaling, buy and hold, any of those avenues, to give them advice from what I've learned so that they can move faster or in a better way than what I did when I started out. Chad Carson and Bigger Pockets gave me a ton of information, helped me get where I am today. And I want, even if I just help one or two people, I want to be able to provide insight into how I think you should move into the real estate sector. What are some of the mistakes I made, and help people move the ball forward and better their lives and better their families. I also just run into some random things in real estate with tenants and other things. And one of the things you sacrifice when you have all these businesses is I don't really do anything with friends. And so I don't have people to go and like just share these nonsense with. And so I share it on social media because I have an outlet, because my wife just rolls her eyes at me when I tell her some of this stuff. So
I love it. Well, and can I also say that what's really impressive, and just kind of speak against what everybody's saying, you're doing this in what a lot of people say is a bad time to buy real estate. You bought 53 properties in what, and again, this is people quote unquote, but they say like, don't buy. This is a bad time to buy. It's the highest in the market. It's about to crash. Everything sucks. Interest rates are 7%, 8%. It's the highest it's been, and it's going to be worse than 2008. You've established this, and you bought in this season, and my guess is that you're probably going to buy when that crash actually happens. That's my guess, is like when things get even worse, you're like, let's go.
So if you look at the data, there was less new loan applications in 2023 than there was in 2008. So we're definitely in interesting times, but there's also lower inventory than ever before. And no matter, if you look at the last 100 years and the appreciation on homes, like over time, it's just a line going up. So the only bad time to buy is to not buy. You will see ups and downs over the short year or two time frame, but over a 10 or 15 year period, almost everything always doubles in appreciation. They're not making any more land. They're not building the houses like they're supposed to. The population just continues to explode across the world. And so the need for homes and the need for affordable housing, which is generally the area that I play in, is going to continue to grow and grow. You can say what you want, or people can think what they want about, whether people will still be buying homes, but in 10, 15 years, I see a massive split between the upper class and the lower class, and the middle class is getting spread out. And I think you need to pick a side, and I'm doing everything I can to pick my side. So
I love it. And to be honest, if BlackRock's doing it, you probably should too.
Warren Buffett,
Berkshire Hathaway,
if it starts raining, grab your bucket, right? And so, and we're not just indiscriminately buying either, right? There's deals to be had out there. They're just not as easy as they used to be. Like, I'm not going on the MLS and picking up 4 houses a day. Like, you've got to find houses that need work, and then you've got to have the relationships to do the contracting work and get them fixed up. But there are deals out there. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have picked up a 10-unit apartment building 2 weeks ago for $160,000. So
that's crazy. That is insane. Yeah, get me in on that deal. Get me wherever, or I want to live there. If I could have you as the landlord, that'd be great. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up, Loren. I appreciate your time and your energy. I think people I don't know if you're going to do a course. I encourage you to do courses because I think people should do it, or at least a mastermind. Give your information. As soon as you talked about that that calculator that you have to identify things, I was like, dude, I'm a marketing guy. That's a lead magnet, and people need it. People would benefit from it. So I hope you give it out as a resource at some point. But thanks for just educating on the possibility of it. I didn't think we would connect to this much, but as soon as you said Amazon, I was like, all right, let's dive in, because half of these Amazon boys are going to be moving to real estate pretty darn soon. And I'm excited that you transition faster, because I agree with you. I think focus on things that are not a hustle, that are a business. And if you are willing to invest in it, again, on the 10-year time horizon, people really, they overestimate what they can do in 90 days, and they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And I think your process has proven that, and I think there's a lot of people that need to hear that more. So thank you so much for spending time with me. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you and stay?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is follow me on Instagram. It's Invest with Loren. And to your comment about the lead magnet, if you follow me and send me either wholesale, I'll send you. I have a template for all wholesale documents that you can use, a calculator and some format or some purchase agreements and assignment contracts that I'll send over free. No email, just send it over. And then if you send buy and hold, I'll send you the rental calculator one too.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you learned something. Share this with one person that needs to hear it, because, in my opinion, a lot of people need to hear this. So send it to somebody. Appreciate you, Loren.
You
Have a good one. Peace.
Can't slow us down.